Welcome back to Return to Heart. In this episode, Jeff Schulte and Phil Herndon unpack the power of attunement, what it means to really connect, and the idea that real connection isn't about fixing, but about tuning in. Let's get started.
Hey, Jeff, here we are again. Episode number, I've lost count, which is probably a good sign. So last time we had this conversation around this idea of acceptance, or kind of coming back down, kind of the wedge in the left-hand side of the transformational process diagram. And we talked about last time acceptance and accepting powerlessness. And that transitions to this movement into talking about a word called attunement. And the subtitle of the podcast is Conversations About What Matters Most. And if you talk to a neuroscientist, that person would probably say, if you want to choose any word that is the most intensely relational, the word that matters the most about relationship is the word attunement. So start in, man. Talk about that.
I like this part of where we are in the transformational process, because, I mean, we have to talk about how we got where we got, because that's the way we all got there. And when I say we all, you know, there's not that many new ways that we can come up with to try to survive life without God. Truthfully, the way we learn to deal with life, we're not that creative, right? You know, I mean, it might look a little nuanced, but I go, truthfully, most of the things I do to try to survive and stay numb and not let stuff get to me, I'm just in a long line, and there's people behind me doing the same stuff, and people ahead of me going to be doing the same stuff.
Almost like Ecclesiastes might be onto something.
Might be.
Okay.
Yeah. So I look and I go, man, we're kind of we're in that part though now. What I love this part is where we talk about like coming home, the return to heart. Like, this is what it looks like to come back.
Yeah. And
that thing called attunement, you know, if you even think about it. There's some, you know, the metaphor itself, you know, so I'm sitting over here, if we had guitars, you know, if we were both musical, it's like attunement. Like, if I sat here and I played a C, and then you grabbed your guitar and you played a C, we'd be playing a C together. And there's something in us, and maybe one of the strongest things in us, that's a C looking for a C, or a G looking for a G, or a D minor looking for a D minor. You know, I think, what's the tree, the redwoods, what's the tree out west that, like, it's a forest, but they're all connected under the ground?
Oh, yes. I can't, it's in Utah.
The idea being that we are like those, like neuroscientists say this, like that we are like those trees, that even though you and I are sitting, like even right now, you and I are sitting 4 feet apart, but literally, it's like my feet are going under the ground, under the carpet, under the subfloor, and it's coming up over there. And there's something in me that's finding you, and something in you that's finding me. And in fact, I can't fully have myself as an individual and even see myself, know myself, be myself, unless there's something in me that's actually tuning to you, that's actually connected to you, that I will go find you, that I do not live in isolation and cannot live in isolation. No introvert, extrovert on this. This is just, I was made to be in tune with God and with others, and I am always trying to find that, and I'm looking for that, and it's one of the greatest needs I have. And so we're on our way back to getting our real needs met, as we're moving back toward back to the middle of that circle, that pie wedge you talked about. I mean, we're on a line, attunement today, which I start getting excited just because this is the hopeful part to me. You know, I don't mind talking about how things became a mess, but I really love talking about how we come home, how we return to heart, and this is a conversation that matters.
Yeah. It's right on. I love that subtitle. Especially around the attunement. I was thinking, it's actually a mutual friend of ours, one of my pastors. He and his wife made the mistake of inviting me to the symphony. Me and my wife Sheila. Because I don't know what I'm doing.
I know which one. I know which pastor probably invited you, and I know which one didn't.
You're right on both counts. One of them symphony, one of them not. And so I'm sitting there. I don't know anything about that world. And so I'm talking way too loud, and I call them a band. Well, they're not a band, they're an orchestra. So, hey, what's the band doing, And so they're all, I clearly know they're warming up, and it sounded like chaos. But I know, they're warming up. And then all of a sudden, a guy came out carrying a violin, and I said way too loudly, and people started clapping. Why are we clapping for him? And our friend's like, hey, because he's first chair, to which, of course, I replied, what's first chair? And so, but in a moment, it happened. He played one note on the violin, and everyone tuned to him. And so that reminds me, you're just talking about the roots that go on the ground, like, oh, we have a central rallying point, and we're getting on the same page. And like you said, the beautiful act of restoration, because if you notice, if you're looking at it, the transformational process, this idea of attunement is related to toxic shame. Like this false narrative that comes up about my unworth, about how I despise my own humanness, how I label myself when I find myself being a human, when I made a mistake or messed up or can't do something. And so this idea of attunement where you're looking for me and I'm looking for you, but if one of us or both of us are covered in toxic shame, I'm really afraid for you to find me. And so this attunement piece, that's where the beautiful picture in Genesis 3 where God's pursuing. And yes, they were exiled from the garden. God's summoning of them was a summons of love. He was summoning them back to restoration. We talked in an earlier episode about the re-God. He is a restorer. So attunement really is this act of restoring. If you're all chaotic, like the symphony, when I attune to you, and obviously vice versa, when you attune to me, my chaos stops and I see, oh, he's playing an emotional note that sounds like the emotional note I've got going on, and that's where we begin to reconnect.
So even like just in a real primal physical sense, like I know I experienced this. I got a better memory of this as a parent than I do as a child. But as a parent, I've got lots of moments in my mind right now of when I saw a child who was unregulated, dysregulated, kind of outside themselves. Okay, and when if I could bring them to me, okay. And in their case, because rationally their brain's pretty immature anyhow, but if I could physically connect to them and their nervous system could connect to mine and regulate off my nervous system. Now, if they're going crazy and then I go crazy, now we're all 10x crazy. Yeah. And now the moment just escalated out of control because dad's raging and now, who knows what's going to happen. Yes. But when I can hold myself as the grown-up and then actually absorb, but like be a vessel that can hold their mess or whatever that is right there. Does that make sense when I say that? Oh, yeah. And even when I've been able to draw them near to me, I literally, in the connection around that, I watch their nervous system change, even in that moment. Now, we're not walking around, like right now, we're not sitting on each other's lap, not hugging each other, but there's something about our relationship that in the attunement process of coming back out of where we've been, out of that big fear being, if I told you the truth about me, if I told you who I really am, you'd what?
Yeah, leave me.
There's the toxic shame answer, which is why I spend my whole life wanting to be known and my whole life trying not to be found out. Okay, so it's always like, come close, don't come close. Come close, don't come close. We talk about attachment later, but like, come close, don't come close. And I want to be known, but I'm afraid to be known. And then when we experience attunement, like we're actually being known. Yeah. And it's physiological what happens in us when that first chair plays the note and we can find the note in us.
That's right. Yes. Jeff, we videoed a series of videos around the Bible study we co-wrote together.
Emotion Unveiled.
And in one of those, I would love, if you're willing, I'd love if you tell a story. You tell a story about you and your grandson.
Oh, yeah.
And that to me, and yes, it was we said that around particularly the feeling of sadness. Your grandson was feeling sad. And yes, but the story is really less about the feeling of sadness.
It's more about attunement.
Yes. So if you wouldn't mind telling me.
Yeah, I will tell that, because it really is about attunement. Now, so a few years ago, my oldest daughter, her husband was a Navy pilot, and he was on one of his deployments. And so they were going to live with us for a year while he was on that deployment. And so they moved in. My daughter and her kids moved in with us. And so they moved in. The son-in-law was with us, and then he was going to leave. And he left. And he was going to be able to come back some, but he had left the night before. And what I remember about this story that we told about in the Emotions Unveiled videos is, man, this is riveting to me now as even I remember it. But I remember coming down to the kitchen the next morning. My daughter's husband had left the night before, so he was gone. And I came downstairs, and my then 4-year-old grandson, Samuel, was sitting at the kitchen table. And I saw him as I walked through the kitchen. Now, by the way, I've got this pretty condensed window of what I got to accomplish to get out of my house in time for work, okay? And I'm feeling all that pressure walking in there going, I got to do this, and this, and I'm going to swallow these vitamins and get this drink ready, whatever. And then there's my grandson. And Kurt Thompson has a great phrase. He says, we come into the world looking for somebody looking for us.
Yes.
That's looking for attunement.
That's right.
And that's an emotional looking. Like I'm looking for someone to emotionally attune to me. And so I'm aware of this, obviously, but I'm sitting there and I watch my grandson. His head is kind of hanging down. And I immediately see him, and I'm thinking to myself, well, he woke up this morning, his daddy's gone. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I thought to myself, I want to go looking for him. Okay. Now, another man who's been a great influence in my life is a guy named Dan Allender, and I know he describes love. One of the aspects of love is called curiosity, when we're curious about somebody. So I thought, you know what? I thought this. I'm going to go. I didn't have any time, but I'm thinking I'm going to go look for that kid, and I'm going to be curious. Okay. Even though I had time for none of it, I did not have time for that. Does that make sense when I say that? Like I just knew because there's no way I was going to abandon that kid in that moment. So I see him across the room, and I kind of walked toward him. I said, Samuel, I said, I was trying to be a little bit like, not bull rushing, but I was like, hey, what's going on, little guy? You know, I didn't assume it. I said, what's going on, little buddy? I called him my little buddy. What's going on, little buddy? And he didn't even look up. He said, Grandpa, I'm sad. And I just went, oh, of course he is.
He's playing a C.
Of course he is.
Right.
And here's what I said. I said, well, will you tell me more about that, Samuel? And I thought he was going to talk about his dad.
So right here, he played a C, so to speak, and you matched it. Uh-huh. So it was beautiful. It seemed subtle. He said, I'm sad, and you said, you didn't say anything as much as you became more present with him.
And I didn't try to talk him out of it.
Yes.
And I didn't try to cheer him up. By the way, I had already assumed what he was, I haven't even told you yet what he told me he's sad about in a minute. I could fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
And my old reaction would have been, man, I need to cheer this kid up.
Yeah.
Okay. His dad just left, and I need to somehow make things better. Instead, I was curious.
And that's the C.
That's the C. And I just said, tell me more about that, Samuel. Mm-hmm. I said, what are you sad about? Mm-hmm. And he said, this totally blew me away. He said, Grandpa, I don't want you to go to work. And then I'm going, oh, God. Now he's sad because I'm leaving for work. Now, in his little 4-year-old mind, it's just another man that he loves leaving him.
Yeah.
Okay. And in that moment, it was as much about his dad leaving the night before and me leaving for work. But in that moment, what he expressed to me was, I don't want you to go to work. Here's the problem. I had to go to work. Okay. So now I have all these feelings going on. I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave him. I'm really sad as well. Mm-hmm. I feel some shame about the fact that I do have to go to work, but I have to go. I got some fear about the whole situation. And I got a lot of empathy for my grandson who just said goodbye to his dad. He's 4. Yeah. By the way, that's the age I was when my dad left and never came back. So I got all this, in milliseconds, all this is going on in my mind, right? And so I just said, Samuel, I said, I'm sad too. Played the C. I'm sad too. Yeah. God, Samuel, I have to go to work. And I wish I didn't have to go to work. I wish I could stay home with you. And I have to go to work. So Samuel, I'm sad too. Bam. C, attuning to the C.
Yes, T-O-O.
And it's not, your sadness isn't what's wrong with you.
Yeah.
It's not, let me get you a sugar cereal to distract you. Let me get you in front of a cartoon that you'll forget about it. I was laughing about in the videos we did for Emotions Unveiled. That's how we train addicts. We train them to find substances on the outside of them to change their internal experience. Okay, and I'm going, no, I'm going to connect with this boy. Okay, so I said, I'm sad too, and I tried to sit up next to him, and he kind of pulled away a little bit. So I didn't bull rush him there. I just said, okay. I said, so then I asked him this. I said, Samuel, I said, tell me what you're sad about. I didn't say it that way to him. He's 4. I said, if I could have stayed home today, what would we have done? Mm-hmm. Now, what's underneath that is let him talk about what he's grieving.
Yes.
What are you sad about? Mm-hmm. And man, he had a list. He told me all the things, and he just bullet. Well, we're going to do cars on the floor of the playroom. We're going to play basketball. We're going to swim. Like, he had a whole list of what he wished I could have stayed home and done with him, that he was sad that he wasn't going to get to do because I was leaving to go to work. Mm-hmm. And as he was listing those things, I could tell physically he was warming up. Okay, he was coming out of his little man cocoon. He was starting to open up to me. And I don't even know how this happened. It wasn't deliberate. Before I knew it, that little boy ended up on my lap with his legs around my waist and his head next to my face, his face just cheek to cheek. And I'm rubbing his back. Mm-hmm. And I said, Samuel, I said, oh man, little guy, I wish we could do all of that. And I'm so sad that we're not going to get to. And I do have to leave for work. And I'm sad too. And I'm really sorry I got to go. Mm. And I love you. I love you, Samuel. And I'll be home tonight. And I had to go. With all those feelings I was having about that moment.
You bet.
Okay. Now, what do you think happened within 30 minutes to an hour of maybe even 15 minutes to that interaction?
A 4-year-old boy's doing his thing.
That kid within a half hour is probably playing, laughing.
Sure.
And it's not because he wasn't sad.
Yeah.
It was because he experienced attunement with someone, and he wasn't alone in that sadness. Experienced comfort. In fact, when I was rubbing his back, I said, Samuel, we're all sad about a lot of things in life. I said, what this is on your back, that's called comfort.
Yeah.
So we were comforting each other about our sadness. Mm-hmm. And a grown-up man in his life was showing him that it's normal to be sad, and it's not what's wrong with him, and he doesn't have to get over it and be tough.
Yes.
And I say this, and actually his resilience was tied, not to being tough, resilience is tied to him being able to be sad and then experience attunement with another person in his life so he doesn't have to be alone in his sadness. Mm-hmm. So all that underneath touching him, me touching me, me touching him that way, we both get our needs met, if that makes any sense.
Yes, indeed.
And he went off and played because he was able to grieve and then keep living. And most of us we don't get to that vulnerable moment to be able to get to that place of our need being met. And the need of attunement is, I don't know if we'll talk about attachment because attunement's related to attachment, but there's probably it's nothing we're more made for than attunement.
For sure. You look, the pages of Scripture, if you look at the Gospels, how Jesus lived, if you take away the actions, look at the heart through which Jesus saw people. It is obviously God in human flesh. Yeah. It is a workshop. It is 4 books of perfect attunement, meeting people where they are, telling the truth about where he was with them and joining them where they are, whether it's comforting Jairus, whose daughter had just died, knowing he's going to resurrect her, but comforting Jairus in the meantime. He didn't tell him, hey, wait a minute. I'm going to raise her from the dead. Don't you worry about it. He comforted him. And all through this motif of Scripture, we have this God in human flesh walking along. He is attuning to people with where they are. He has compassion. He's moved viscerally. And that story with you and Samuel, that truly is, I've said this behind your back, I'll say it here on our podcast, that's one of the most comprehensive stories and substantive stories of attunement that I've heard. Like that blow by blow you just walked through, like look at all we won't take it all apart right now, but look at all the elements that you did that conventional wisdom would say to do. Distract him. You make up a story. This is all about your son-in-law leaving for deployment, and would completely miss the blessing you got from being with him in that way. You're an adult. Know his grief was rooted in his dad being gone, but for him, and attunement is not where am I, it's where are you, and not me joining you in a fake kind of way,
Yeah.
but me joining you where you are right now. And how do we know that? Curiosity. Allender says it being curious about the heart of the other.
And even in my own growth around this, if I'm not comfortable having my own feelings, I'm going to judge everyone around me when they have theirs.
Yes.
And they'll feel that.
Yes.
This is all limbic. Like, they'll get that as well. They'll know that that's what I think's wrong with them.
Yes.
People always say, I'm harder on myself than anybody else. Well, that's not true. Because if you're hard on yourself, you're measuring yourself against everybody else, which means you're measuring everybody else.
That's right.
And if you're not measuring up, none of them are either.
Yeah.
In that moment, it was permission giving to both of us. And it started with me being aware of all I was feeling in the moment for that to happen.
Yeah.
I remember this as a young Christ follower, even as I began to read the Bible for the first time, and it was stunning to me. In fact, it's amazing to think about it right now when I think about when Jesus chose the 12. Because it's really easy to read that in a real utilitarian sense. Like, Jesus was on a mission. He had a job to do. He's going to get these guys ready and trained to build the church and be ready when he's gone. And, the training of the 12, all that's true. But there's a phrase in the New Testament where when he was choosing the 12, when it literally says he chose them so that they would be with him.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I actually just stopped on that little phrase. Like he did do all those other things, but the invitation was his witness. Like, he actually was with people and wanted them to be with him. And it was very attractive about him. I'm thinking, you're talking about even like when Lazarus died. He's going to raise him from the dead, but he weeps with them first.
Yeah.
And it wasn't crocodile tears he didn't have. He actually wept.
Yes.
And you can talk a lot about where that came from. I mean, just even grief over this creation, that he was the creator in the Godhead. Jesus was. The Father decreed it. Jesus was the creator, and the Holy Spirit sustains it all. So here's even the creator of human life looking at his human life and seeing what sin did to it. And his best friend's dead in a tomb.
Right.
So he's grieving over Lazarus, but probably grieving over everything that's happened to his creation through the fall. There's so much happening there. But in the grief, he's connecting with everybody, and he's so different that way than the religious leaders because they could actually attune to him.
That's right.
And I think that's what made him so winsome and attractive.
Yes. So many. I'm toggling between your story with Samuel and Scripture, and it would have been so easy, and it's a human thing we do at times. Yeah. I've done it a million times. It would have been so easy because here's what you knew: content. Yeah. Your son-in-law had deployed for a year. 4-year-old boy is going to be sad about that. He's not living at home now. He's at Grandpa and Grandma's house, but he's in a different place. It would have been so easy for you to teach him lessons about, hey, man, your dad's in the military, and this is how this happens, and you're going to be okay, and just eat this cereal, and I'll be back, and then we're going to do all these cool things. It would have been so easy to give him a bunch of content, and the content would be accurate. He is in a military family. It is a new place. He can eat his cereal. You can do some stuff when you get home. But that's delivering accurate data, and it's not attunement. So I'm just captured by how the attunement piece, it cut through the evident data, and you met Samuel where this 4-year-old boy was, more than give him data to support why it's okay for him to be sad or why he shouldn't be so sad.
Yeah.
And the attunement says the opposite. And I think of Jesus, Matthew 11. I look at his face as I'm reading this text. It says, "Come to me, all ye who are weary and heavy laden. I will give you rest." And I think, man, you want to talk about, it's an easy section to fly through because we're so familiar with Jesus' call there. But back up the video and watch Jesus, who he's talking to, shackle people, they're burdened down. Imagine his face as he's saying that.
Yeah.
Hey, come here, be with me. You're weary, you're heavy laden, you're carrying a load you're not made to carry. And let me tell you something, life with me, because I'm going to be with you, life with me, the burden that you carry is light. It's what you're made for. And my yoke is easy. He's not going to chafe you and rub you. But even that small invitation, attunement and invitation have so much to do with each other. Jesus is inviting them into something, and he's doing it by way of saying, I know where you are. And we know, because we know the story, he really knew where they were, because this is God taking on human flesh, facing the cross.
So I don't miss the fact that Samuel is the one that helped initiate the possibility for attunement. Now, I was curious, and I asked the question, and I didn't go into fixed mode. But when I asked him the question, Samuel, where are you?
Yeah.
What's going on in you?
That's right.
The admission was one of neediness. Grandpa, I'm sad.
Yeah.
And then what he experienced with me was acceptance. And then what we both got was attunement.
That's right.
Which is part of the transformational process.
Yes.
We come to a place, we know as Christ followers, we use the word confession, like we can say out loud what's true, okay, which is kind of like admission, like I can say it. But what's beautiful is because of the gospel, there's a chance for me to say what's true, the things that I'm most ashamed of, the things that I most think's wrong with me, the things I've most run from most of my life, the things that I think if you knew about me, you would absolutely reject me. And I experience acceptance. By the way, it has to be this way. When I say this way, I mean horizontal, for us to even know any idea what we experience vertically. That's why the body is the body of Christ.
Yeah. That
we have to experience in human relationships some aspect of what we're made to have with God.
That's right.
So in that moment when actually there's human acceptance from, it's all through the New Testament. James, I could go over a million passages right now, Phil. We'll do this later. But to go, when there's acceptance on a human level, somebody still loves me after I'm vulnerable and human, when I'm admitted where I'm at, my neediness, then there's acceptance. And then there's this payoff called attunement. Now I'm on my way to getting my real needs met as a human being. Which I go all the way back to go, man, that's what Adam and Eve had in the garden before the fall. Like there was no independence. There was no, so I just look and I go, man, I fight for that. And this isn't for today, but all I know is when I was around his age, that's been part of my story, is when I was abandoned by my dad. And part of my story was never having a place to talk about any of those feelings I had about what that was like for me. Instead, I was trained to overcome it all. And it wasn't until I was in my 40s that now I'm starting to be able to talk about it. Again, this is part of my own return to heart. But that little boy still had heart. Now, here's the sad part. Even in that moment when it happened, I'll tell you what I thought. I thought, man, he's got so much access to himself right now. And sadly, because of this world he's in, he's going to slowly lose that.
That's right.
Now, what I hope is with a mom and a dad and grandparents and some people that love him and in his relationship with God, the little boy now, he has a legitimate relationship with. He's 7 now. He's got a legitimate relationship with God. That there's some sense that he retains more of that than I did, and that he has people around him that'll help him keep heart, not just have to return to it, but keep more of what he has. But I remember thinking, like I'm getting more of him right now than I'll probably get for a while.
Joy and sadness.
Oh my gosh, because he had such quick access to it.
Yeah.
And I thought that is when, I think in some ways it's what Jesus, when Jesus said, unless you become like a child, you will not, I'm going to paraphrase this, you will not experience what I'm offering you.
That's right.
It doesn't mean unless you become foolish like a child. I think unless you have the neediness of a child.
Yes. And admission.
And the admission of that, because that's what a child does.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love that.
That's so beautiful. And Chesterton, G.K. Chesterton, I love his work, and it's his seminal work, Orthodoxy.
Yeah.
He doesn't say the word attunement. He's talking about human relationship. It's very early I think it may be even in the introduction. Chesterton says that life on earth in the body is about wonder and welcome.
Huh.
It's like you were wondering about this boy that you love, and then you welcomed him, as I used the word invitation earlier. But if we practice that with people we're in true relationship with, if we wonder rather than decide what's going on, rather than decide it was about your son-in-law going on deployment, rather than decide that what he needed was so-and-so, you had wonder. He said, Samuel, what's going on? And then you welcomed him to tell the story. So much of attunement is those two things. Again, a slightly different context, but although Chesterton was talking about relationship, and what we're calling attunement. It's like, hey, what am I wondering about this person that I love? And I want to welcome them to tell me what it is, not me tell them. And that's so what's important. The proverbial example is, a kid comes home from school downcast. Honey, how was your day? Fine. But that attunement piece comes in where you go, hey, I know you may not have the words to say all of this. I want you to know. I really want to know the details of your day, wonder. And I would love to hear detail on, so you said fine, your face doesn't know that. It was fine today. So tell me. So examples abound, but this wonder and welcome, I think Chesterton talks about, if we would take a step back, we humans, this one too, if we humans would take a step back and wonder what is going on with this person, my dear intimate friend, what is going on with him, and welcome my friend to tell me that. So as he tells me, he experiences me looking for him. Because what I'm saying is, Jeff, your face, your body, the feel of you, limbic resonance we've talked about, the limbic resonance around you feels like something. And you tell me, you said earlier, it's a D minor. Okay, I'm going to play that too. And that's where the welcome to come in. When I ask you tell me what's happening, and I'm going to match that by saying, hey, in my humanness, I may not have experienced the content of what you've experienced, but I have had the human experience of whatever's going on with you. If you're hurt, I've been hurt. If you're afraid, I've been afraid. You said it beautifully to Samuel. Samuel said, Grandpa, I'm sad. And you go, oh, I know what that's like.
I know what that's like.
It's beautiful. That's what attunement is. And it is so reparative to this idea of toxic shame. Toxic shame says, I'm inadequate, I'm no good. Toxic shame says I'm a blank for my inadequacy, how I define myself when I have feelings, and I despise how human and how limited I am. And attunement says, hey, guess what? That's me too. I wonder what's going on with you, and I welcome you to tell me so we can be together.
So we talk about this in other contexts. We talk about it in Emotions Unveiled. We talk about it in other things we'll talk about even in this podcast. But in some ways, attunement is going to be the other side of the coin of loneliness.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
That when I'm with somebody that won't play the C, I might be so unaware of myself, I don't know what it is. All I know, I could tell you, if I could look at it and I could open you up, I'd say, well, that's called lonely. You're with someone you're not with.
Yeah.
Because they're not with themselves, they can't be with you, which is how come you're lonely.
Yeah.
And that's why learning even the leaders that I work with all the time, I tell them, look, you cannot be outwardly focused until you're inwardly aware. Mm-hmm. It starts with me before I can even look to you. Yeah. So I go back to this thing called attunement. Samuel showed up with his sadness, and I had to sit with my fear and my sadness and my shame that I was going to have to leave my grandson.
Yeah.
And I had to go to, there were things I could not cancel. Right. Okay. And I didn't like any of it. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to have to leave the house with a very sad 4-year-old sitting at the kitchen table. Probably nobody else was awake yet.
Yeah.
When I ultimately left, I didn't leave him in anyone's arms. Mm. I left a boy that didn't know. I left a boy that knew he was less alone than he was before I walked into that kitchen.
That's right.
And I was going to come home to him later, but for now, we had a moment of attunement.
Yes.
But it started with, I just say, when I was standing there with my admission and his admission.
That's right.
And then there was acceptance. And we both experienced attunement. And so I just know for me, I can't force people to do this with me. And I don't do this with everybody because I don't have to be attuned to the world.
That's
right?
right.
I don't want to be, I'm trying to tune to the orchestra playing all these crazy notes. Mm-hmm. I want to tune to the right notes with people I really care about. But I also have to be able to play my note with somebody to see if they can play it, which means we'll talk about this in the future. We're leading with weakness. I know that most of the time if I have to win, I'll lose. So I have to learn how to lose so I can win, which means being on the vulnerable side, be able to show up with that weakness, talk about what I feel, all those kind of things we practice. But anyway, this is just a very hopeful subject to me.
Yeah.
And I think because, and if my wife was sitting here, she would say this. We've been married 38 years, and we've both been married about 5 or 6 times.
Right.
In that 38 years.
Boy, for sure. Yeah, I get that.
And she would even say, on her end of it, that there have been periods of where we'd always say we thought we had a great marriage, like relatively speaking. Mm-hmm. But she would also say times of great loneliness for her.
Yeah.
Because my inability to attune to her.
Yeah.
Because I was really lost myself. I was still in my toxic shame. And then I started acting out. All these things where I was just disappearing. She was married to someone who she was committed to, but Brenda and I weren't doing what Samuel and I did.
Yeah.
And I will tell you this too. Samuel's easier than Brenda.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. We'll do about
grandchildren are easier than wives.
Oh my gosh. Or
husbands.
even your own children.
Yeah.
Okay. But grandchildren are probably the lowest fruit on the tree, which is why that story's a winner for me. Yeah. Because I just kind of go, well, that fruit was like fell in the basket, right? My grandson, right. That's easy. My kids are hard. My wife is harder.
That's right.
Because there's more at stake.
Yeah.
Because their rejection of me will be more painful than anyone else's rejection, which is why I'm going to be more likely to not want to open up and be vulnerable. That whole sort of, if you really knew this about me, you leave me. So come close, but don't come too close, that whole thing. So, we can talk about marriage at some point here too. But I picked one that was actually one of the wins I've had.
Well, yeah. Why not pick them low, man?
It's a good picture though.
Well,
and we're going to run out of time here, but. I'll say this is funny because in the Emotions Unveiled videos, I tell a hypothetical story when we talk about loneliness of laying in bed with my wife and her saying that she's lonely. Can I tell that story?
You said a hypothetical story?
Yeah, hypothetical.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And I was really telling it because I hadn't happened. I know it happened one time, but I was telling it hypothetically, but it's probably happened. This is crazy. So we filmed those, and I promise you, Phil, what's today? We're doing this on a Friday. I think it was Monday or Tuesday of this week. And I'm laying in bed. And Brenda invites me into a relationship with her admission of her loneliness.
Oh, boy. You were a prophet.
Oh, my gosh. And I sat there for a minute. And at first, the best thing I could do in that moment, the best thing I had in me, first thing, because I tend to freeze up in that moment. That goes, I go to toxic shame. Mm-hmm. I kind of froze for a second. And the first thing is I reached over and I grabbed her hand. Mm-hmm. That was the first kind of move toward connecting and attunement. And then I actually said, hey, I did this. I'm proud of myself. This is such growth. And she would say it was. I said, and by the way, and I was supposed to, this was before work. So it's like 5:30 in the morning. I need to get up and go. Same scenario, Samuel. And I said, hey, can you tell me more about that? Mm-hmm. I want to know more. Yeah. And she said, you don't have time. I know you got to go. And I said, no, tell me. I got some time. I'll be fine. Mm.
Yeah. Attunement.
And it's attunement anyway.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, this is a great place to stop. We could literally talk about this forever. Yeah. And there's a couple of things hanging here. You're saying something really important, Jeff, and that is we don't ever arrive, okay, now I'm in attunement and we're good. Yeah. Like attunement, we're signing up for loose ends. And some people here in the podcast may be in that situation, as in, man, I've really lacked attunement and I lack attunement currently. And so this is neither shameless nor necessarily a plug, but that's what we exist to do, to coach people, to help people who have a lack or a deficit of attunement in their life. So really want to encourage listeners, if not 10 men somewhere, you may need to get some help. And so I would ask you to consider a question as we close. We close these with a thought or something to work on or to look at in between times.
Now what? Yeah.
Kind of a so what, yeah. So it might be a good thing to write on a piece of paper, like, who was curious about my heart? And then who was not? Who is curious about my heart and who is not? And just look at that list, not to blame the people, but to say, oh, this thread of lack of attunement really runs through my story, and I may need some help to tell that story with this language in my left brain that's living over here in my right brain. So really encourage people to do that. And so glad you're on the journey with us. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to you next time, 10men.org. Thanks a lot.
Thanks again for joining us on Return to Heart. To access resources mentioned on this program or to find out more about Tin Man Ministries, please go to tinman.org.